In our previous video, we told you how Ibrahim Babangida overthrew his commander-in-chief Muhammadu Buhari on August 27, 1985. You can check out that story in the description. In this video, we shall take a look at the consequences and of course the military and security implications of the 1985 Buhari overthrow. Major General Ibrahim Babangida returned to the Flagstaff House on 2nd Avenue, Ikoyi, upon his return to Lagos from Minna. It was the Chief of Army Staff's official house during the time. Babangida made his first formal broadcast to the Nigerian people from this location. Officers were horse trading and jockeying for places in the new dispensation behind the scenes from the moment he returned to Lagos until the next morning. The next day, coup plotters and important stormtroopers, as well as a few co-opted officers, convened at Dodam Barracks to debate the new regime's initial shape, velocity, and direction. It was after this inner process of consultation that membership of the new Armed Forces Ruling Council, the Federal Cabinet, and the Council of State was announced. The IBB regime had begun. In history, the majority of coups planned and implemented by army chiefs have succeeded, and the removal of Muhammadu Buhari was no exception. In August 1985, the head of state was isolated, with no foreign intelligence organization on the ground to protect him from the intrigues of army intelligence, which was able to hide from the probing eyes of the Nigerian Security Organization, NSO. Buhari's intelligence from other sources, like that of many other Nigerian presidents before him, was ambiguous regarding the approaching coup. He didn't have his own foreign security guards, and Battalion 11 Sleepers had long undercut his command of the local brigade of guards. Units he could rely on in Jos were neutralized, especially if he had left Lagos for Abuja early enough. Buhari might have moved preemptively against the army based on these hazy intelligence findings by proclaiming a state of emergency, suspending movements, and ordering major redeployments followed by a purge. This would almost probably result in the coup's failure. Now, let us look at the military and security implications of the overthrow. Apart from the early choices to release politicians and suspected drug traffickers while revoking draconian orders and reopening the debate on an IMF loan, the new Babangida regime singled out the Nigerian Security Organization (NSO) for humiliation. Its former director, Alhaji Lawal Rafindadi, not particularly popular within the organization anyway, was detained for 3 years. Decree No. 27 of 1976 had originally created the NSO after the failure of the so-called Dimka coup, in which General Murtala Mohammed was killed. MD Yusuf, the then Inspector General of Police, told Lieutenant General Olusegun Obasanjo, the then Commander-in-Chief, that the police special branch could not legally conduct intelligence operations within the military in conjunction with military intelligence. Yusuf proposed the creation of a new, less compartmentalized agency, the NSO, to take direct and coordinating responsibility for domestic and international intelligence and security, despite the special branch's high effectiveness in civil society in collaboration with the Cabinet Office and Ministry of Internal Affairs. The first director, Brigadier Abdullahi Mohammed, was appointed because the main goal was to improve intelligence within and about the military. He was a member of the gang that ousted General Gowon from power in July 1975, having been recalled from his former position as military governor of Benue Plateau. In 1979, however, President Shehu Shagari appointed Alhaji Umaru Shinkafi, a skilled police officer and lawyer with experience in intelligence and Interpol, to the position. As a result, the initial justification for the NSO's inception and intent for the job to be filled by military officers in a similar manner to military intelligence fell through the cracks. When General Buhari took power, he appointed Ambassador Lawal Rafindadi, a career diplomat who had previously served in the Ministry of External Affairs Special Intelligence Unit, further complicating matters, though the ambassador clearly had some strength on the external intelligence front, having previously served in the Special Intelligence Unit. However, when Buhari's relationship with the military worsened, Rafindadi's relationship with the military deteriorated as well, exacerbated by his unusual experience as a bloody civilian ambassador and his great personal loyalty to Buhari. Rafindadi's lack of previous military service eventually proved to be a disadvantage when military intelligence began to play games, which was worsened by internal NSO purges conducted, which cost the organization the services of some very highly skilled and experienced Shinkafi-era operatives. Babangida's initial reaction when he came to power was to dismantle the group because of its omnipresent nature, which included wiretaps that purportedly even recorded telephone conversations made by his daughter. The new regime, on the other hand, quickly realized that it too would require a security infrastructure. Following an inquest chaired by Umaru Shinkafi in June 1986, Babangida issued Decree No. 19, disbanding the NSO and decentralizing Nigeria's security forces. Following that, 3 new organizations were established. They were the State Security Service (SSS), responsible for domestic intelligence, the National Intelligence Agency (NIA) for external intelligence and counterintelligence, the Defense Intelligence Agency (DIA) for military-related intelligence both outside and inside Nigeria. Following the August coup, Babangida made sure that important military positions were filled by hand-picked officers who are either IBB boys or apolitical types with no known affiliation in other client networks inside the army. In the years to come, this manner of personalizing army postings and exacting depths of gratitude would become the norm. However, it did not end there. Babangida realized he needed to construct a wall around himself to protect the government from the same army he had used to destabilize others. He experimented with the development of a new paramilitary forces like the National Guard, in addition to a liberal policy of patronizing payoffs, also known as settlements. This was commanded only by his most intimate loyalists until he left office in 1993. At the Ojo cantonment, Babangida invited Israeli security specialists to assist him in training personal security guards. Ibrahim Babangida even gave the Minister of Internal Affairs the power to arrest and imprison suspects without charge or trial, despite the Chief of General Staff and Inspector General of Police's objections. Babangida also brought back the idea of a Lagos Garrison Command and attempted to decentralize, that is, regionalize the defense headquarters by relocating the Army, Air Force and Naval headquarters to Minna, Lagos and Kano respectively, a decision that was vehemently opposed by many retired officers who looked bemused as the head of state dismantled, disoriented and distracted the defense establishments. But the worst was yet to come. The Ministry of Defense headquarters in Lagos, which is situated in the historic Independence Building, was nearly destroyed in a strange fire. In September 1992, a C-130 Hercules airplane disaster, allegedly caused by fuel contamination, killed roughly 150 middle-ranking officers. General Sani Abacha, who had diligently understudied Babangida, proceeded in a similar manner when it came to suffocating the defense institution when he eventually became the head of state in 1993. Among his fellow IBB boys, Abacha cleansed the more dangerous coup addicts, whom he had never trusted anyway. General Sani Abacha also disbanded the National Guard, but later replaced it with the Special Bodyguard Unit and Strike Force, a well-armed and Libyan-trained parallel security force led by Major Hamza al-Mustafa, his chief security officer. The August 27, 1985 Buhari Overthrow had other short and long-term consequences. In cooperation with a vocal minority in the civil service, the Nigerian army sold its soul to the highest bidder. An upcoming group of coup d'etat experts was introduced by the main coup strategists. The IBB boys, a collection of personalities whose relationship with the boss ranged from intimate to opportunistic, were the center of this strange organization. They were granted access to all material and official doors as members of this private club. They were bootlickers who had a complicated conception of their constitutional and state obligations. Their principle was self-interest, and their dogma was loyalty to an individual. Indeed, the origins of 1980s coup merchants can be traced back to 1966. The major field grade officers that removed Gowon in July 1975 were mostly subalterns in July 1966. The February 1976 shootout, also known as the Dimka coup, was the result of infighting among the initial July 1966 coup cabal. The brigadiers of 1983 were the field grade officers of July 1975. The infighting among the brigadiers in 1983 also led to August 1985. In other words, throughout the course of a 20-year period, the same set of officers and men provided the foundation for multiple coup and coup attempts, and knowingly or not, constructed a pipeline to continue the pattern. Details of what happened on Coup Day soon became the topic of discussion in officers' messes and mammy markets across the country. Many of the august stormtroopers couldn't help but brag about their gallantry. Legends abound about how this or that road junction was seized, or how the police were overrun, or how citizens gazed in awe at tanks on the move. Bravado stories of specific policemen being arrested, abused, and or ridiculed were particularly upsetting. Clearly, these officers, particularly Major General Muhammadu Buhari, Brigadier Saliu Ibrahim, and Majors Mustapha Jokolo and Adesina, were luckier than the unfortunate policemen at Ikeja who were killed, as well as many of their military forefathers who were murdered brutally in previous coup in Nigeria. And most could not have failed to notice that the idea of detaining, stripping, beating, or killing senior officers or robbing their property was not new, as the January and July rebellions of 1966 had brutally revealed. Those with even longer memories will recall 3 separate investigations into stealing by Nigerian officers and soldiers during UN peacekeeping missions in the Congo from 1960 to 1964. Looting was also frequent throughout the Civil War. Following the coup in December 1983, Presidential Shagari's personal possessions and life records were looted. Many of these priceless records and possessions have never been found to this day. However, the culture of publicly bragging about it and toasting to such a significant assault on the military's ethos and value system was sure to damage the institution. It was followed by thinly disguised rewards for participants in the form of juicy political and military appointments. These are a few examples. Major General Ibrahim Babangida became President and Commander-in-Chief, and 2 years later, a full general. He stepped aside under tense circumstances in August 1993. Brigadier Sani Abacha was promoted Major General and became Chief of Army Staff, later Chairman, Joint Chiefs, Defense Minister, and Head of State as a full general. Colonel Joshua Donguyaro was promoted Brigadier and became GOC 3rd Armored Division in Jos and later GOC 2nd Division Ibadan. Although Donguyaro's desire to be Chief of Army Staff was frustrated by Babangida, he later commanded ECOMOG in Liberia as well as the Tri-Service Command and Staff College, and was Chief of Defense Staff as a Lieutenant General for about 24 hours in 1993 before Abacha outmaneuvered him. Colonel Aliyu Ahmed Gusso was recalled from retirement, promoted Brigadier, and became National Security Coordinator, later a GOC of the 2nd Division, Chief of Army Administration, and much later Chief of Army Staff under Ernest Shonekan as a Lieutenant General. He too fell out with General Abacha during the Abacha years. Lieutenant Colonel Alilu Akilu was promoted Colonel, retained Directorship of Military Intelligence, and became a member of the Armed Forces Ruling Council AFRC. He remained a power broker and one-time coordinator of national security until Abacha cynically redeployed him to command the uninspiring army resettlement scheme at Oshodi in 1993 before booting him out of the army altogether. Lieutenant Colonel Tanko Ayuba was promoted Colonel, later became a Minister for Communications and Kaduna State Governor. He eventually retired as a Major General. Lieutenant Colonel David Mark was promoted Colonel, later commanded the Signal Corps, gained the membership of the AFRC, and also held the position of Minister for Communications. Following the emergence of General Abacha in 1993, retired Colonel Mark escaped into exile for his own safety. Lieutenant Colonel John Nazib Shagaya, a proud IBB boy, was promoted Colonel and became Minister for Internal Affairs and later as a Brigadier GOC 1st Division. He too got the short end of the stick from General Sani Abacha in 1993. Shagaya had been appointed Field Commander in the ECOMOG Peacekeeping Force in Liberia in September 1993, relieving Major General Tunji Olurin. Abacha did not trust Shagaya and other IBB boys loyal to Babangida. Within a few days, he was recalled from Liberia, demoted from Major General to Brigadier General, and then retired from the army. Other officers who benefited from these juicy political and military appointments were Lieutenant Colonel Raji Alagbe Razak, Colonel Anthony Ukpo, Lieutenant Colonel Joshua M. Madaki, Major John Y. Madaki, Major Abdulmumini Aminu, and Major Lawan Gwadabe. Gwadabe assumed chairmanship of the National Shipping Line, was promoted Lieutenant Colonel, then became Governor of Niger State, and later Commander of the Embryonic National Guards before his stint as Chief of the Gambian Army. He returned to Nigeria after the Yaya Jammeh coup in the Gambia, was briefly PSO to General Abacha, and later commander of an armored brigade in Yola. He was tortured, convicted, and jailed for the so-called Gwadabe Bello-Fadile conspiracy of 1995. Another notable mention of one of the discreet IBB boys is then Major Mohammed Sambo Dasuki. Dasuki became ADC to the head of state but was later shepherded out of the country for a staff college training at Fort Leavenworth, followed by a US-based degree program in part to insulate him from the wrath of General Sani Abacha with whom he clashed. His father became the 17th Sultan of Sokoto under Babangida, only to be deposed later by Abacha. As a lieutenant colonel, Sambo Dasuki was declared wanted in connection with the 1995 Gwadabe Bello-Fadile conspiracy and found solace in Brunei. In addition to these overt appointments, numerous not so overt appointments of junior officers into federal parastatals followed. Many other more discreet IBB boys like Buba Marwa and several others were also quietly rewarded. A cabal of middle-ranking officers was formalized outside the Armed Forces Ruling Council (AFRC). This cabal was more powerful than the AFRC. Majors could decide the fate of generals. Not surprisingly, these arrangements badly affected the morale of the more regimented apolitical professional elements in the military. Recall that after the July 1966 Northern Counter-Coup, then Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Mohammed urged the innermost members of the conspiracy to keep sealed lips about what they had accomplished. Mohammed reminded them that coup plotting, even when allegedly forced by circumstances, was hardly honorable and did not have the moral status of a war against an external enemy. There was nothing, he remarked, to be proud about. But for the players of August, 21 years later, such high-minded considerations did not rise to their level of consciousness. It was bad enough that many officers who were not involved thought the circumstances of and reasons for the coup were dubious at best. But coup planners and their collaborators broke bottles of champagne and toasted. In fact, in years to come, they would repeatedly confront the authority of the traditional army hierarchy and would one day arrogate to themselves the right to decide who could rule or not rule Nigeria. Anyway, cracks within the coup merchant family of IBB boys appeared many years later. General Abacha, instrumental to the annulment by Babangida of the June 12, 1993 election that might have resulted in the assumption of the presidency by Chief MKO Abiola, turned on many of his former fellow coup conspirators. He first did so during a series of deft purges in August 1993, and then later in March 1995, he arrested and declared a group of officers wanted on charges of conspiracy to overthrow his government. Interestingly, 10 years after the event of August 27, 1985, most of the officers who overthrew Buhari and toasted their success with champagne were in exile, had died, been jailed, retired, or dismissed from the military. General Abacha also deposed the 17th Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Ibrahim Dasuki, who some people felt had been installed by General Babangida over the wishes of the kingmakers. In June 1998, General Abacha himself died under mysterious circumstances, followed soon after by Chief MKO Abiola. In May 1999, shortly after assuming office as Nigeria's new president, Olusegun Obasanjo cleansed the armed forces of the few remaining IBB and Abacha boys as part of an uphill battle to reprofessionalize the military. In our next video, we shall bring to you one of the vestiges of the Buhari Overthrow. Babangida had just been in power for around 4 months when this happened. It was the so-called Vatsa conspiracy trial of 1985-1986.